Starfield is shaping up to become one of the biggest games of the generation, and as new info is revealed by Todd Howard of Bethesda, impressive showings of gameplay and details emerge, fans' excitement for the Xbox and this new IP are at an all-time high. Big questions are finally being answered about Starfield, and now it's finally time to find out what is possible with this game on new hardware and in the hands of Xbox players. Recently, Kind of Funny Games Xcast interviewed Todd Howard and asked burning questions that reveal the details of gameplay mechanics and long-held secrets about how we will explore the galaxy in Starfield. One of the most prominent questions lingering over the galaxies of Starfield is the bragging rights of over 1,000 planets that you can land on, mine, explore, and even find new side quests to take on. In a recent interview here, Todd Howard explains that the 1,000 planets in Starfield are mostly procedurally generated with systems in place to make the planets feel believable based on their location in their solar systems. But with all of that procedurally generated content across hundreds and hundreds of planets that you may visit, Todd Howard explains that there is more handcrafted content on these planets than in the games Skyrim and Fallout 4 combined.
We wanted to do the planets because we like to give you that choice. Where do you want to go? You feel like you would want that choice in a game like this. And so first it was technically, could we pull it off? It's procedural. Okay, so there's no way we're going to go and handcraft an entire planet. What we do is we handcraft individual locations, and some of those are placed specifically, obviously the main cities and other quest locations. And then we have a suite of them that are generated or placed when you land, depending on that planet. Now, I'll also say for us, we view it as giving you, when you look at a system, here's the menu of things you could do. And like science, and we're pushing it, about 10% of those planets have life on them. Again, we're pushing it to the edge of what do people think, what planets are in that Goldilocks zone versus planets that have resources. You know, I think it is a moment when you land on some of these barren planets. And again, we will generate certain things for you to find on them. But if you look at a planet, you see the resources, it has things you want. There is, I love the Buzz Aldrin quote, the magnificent desolation. I think there's a certain beauty to landing on those and feeling I'm one of the only people or the only person to ever visit this planet. So it's a difficult design thing. If you add too many things, if it's generating too many abandoned bases or towers or things to find, it starts feeling too gamey in some of those locations. So I think we've dialed that in pretty well, depending on the planet that you're on. And so we hope everybody enjoys it for what it is, but it is an exploration different than we've had, where you're landing, you're exploring around that landing spot, and then you're probably going somewhere else.
Much of the very impressive footage we see in Starfield shows the player character walking and overlooking massive landscapes, beautiful global illuminated lighting, volumetric fog, and sparse locations with abandoned outposts. There are mechanics in place for Starfield that bring a massive game loop of scanning, mining, exploration, and combat that will provide a satisfying cycle to level up your character while also finding those precious resources for building materials and interesting weapons and upgrades. Todd Howard explains this gameplay loop as you land on planets to explore.
We have a lot of biomes. We do look at temperature, we look at the radiation, we look at all of those things on a planet so that your suit and your protection, you can get certain ailments if you're not ready, and certain weather things can come through with all of that. So there are obviously planets that might have one type of biome, and there are planets that have a whole bunch, and their creatures and the plants and everything go with the biome. So there's a whole part of the game where surveying a planet, like discovering all of the flora and fauna and resources. Planets also have traits, usually geological things that are inherent to that planet, and uncovering those. And if you fully survey a planet, that data is actually worth a lot of money, credits in the game that you can sell. So there's a whole part of the game that's really just doing that. It's a little more, I almost describe it Zen-like. You can get on a planet where the creatures there, some of them can be aggressive, where it can get dangerous if you're exploring the planet. And you can watch the creatures. We've actually had a problem at times with the predator creatures going and killing all of the more peaceful creatures you're coming across. Why are they all dead? And then you realize there's something dangerous in the area. So I would say this, that we do everything that you mentioned, and we really try to mix it up and spend a lot of time balancing that. So it is fun minute to minute, but you also know what you're getting into. Our quest system, I think people are, there are a lot of open world games now, but I think what really makes ours different is that all these quests are running. It's not like you start a mission and we shut everything down. You can be on dozens of these at once, and that creates a lot of chaos sometimes in our games. We're aware of that, but it also creates these magic moments that we just love and our players love, and I think that's what's really, really special about it.
As Bethesda shows massive spanning landscapes of desolate wastelands or beautiful resource-enriched geography, one of the drawbacks that worries fans is that you cannot simply lift off in your spaceship and fly over to land across a planet to close the gap of long distances. Fans have been asking for quite a while if Starfield doesn't let you take off and land wherever you want. Will it include land vehicles that you can use or rovers to get you to landmarks that seem too far off or too arduous for on-foot travel? Todd Howard finally answers the questions. Do we have land vehicles in Starfield?
There is not. We do design it. I think when we've seen this with our other games where we want to design it so it feels good on foot, but we do have the boost pack. You saw some of that in the video, and you have skills for the boost pack. So the boost pack almost acts like this vehicle. It's super fun where you can fly through, and then the low gravity planets are just really, really something special in the game.
A lot has been explained in the space combat and the shipbuilding in the Starfield Direct, which breaks down a massive gameplay loop that within itself is almost equal to a dedicated shipbuilding video game. But one of the most impressive feats in Starfield is that these ships can be explored on the inside while also flown from the outside to engage in dogfighting combat. In Starfield, you can shoot down an enemy ship and scrap their remains for parts or upgrades, but you can also dock an incapacitated ship, enter the inside and take down the enemies and bring that ship back to port for financial gain. Fans that are excited to shoot down or scrap or send enemy ships back home to port for a quick profit will be surprised to know that Bethesda has made this system much more rewarding.
They're all upgradable. They go through the same. We built those ships with the builder that you all saw in the Direct. When you steal one, we do make you register it. If you want to modify it or use it in those ways, you have to spend credits to go register it. And that's for us to keep it from the economy kind of spiraling in those ways. You can fly it around, but if you want to mess with it, you register it, and then you go through that whole loop of upgrading it. I will say that that's a very deep system, and one that we expect for late game. It's not like you start the game and then you're going to get right into shipbuilding. It costs a lot of credits. It is, in a good way, a very complicated system, and one that it was more of a longer term thing in the game. You can easily upgrade your ship, like just go in and say, I want to improve these weapons, I want to improve the grav drive or the shields. That's very, very easy to do. But where you go in that mode and you break it apart and you're building, that is a whole mode onto itself that is more of a long-term play kind of thing.
Starfield fans have been asking about different mechanics, how they'll play the game as they discover this massive universe for months leading up to this release. But one of the most talked about details of Starfield is not the gameplay, but it's the decision to set performance to 30 FPS on the new generation Xbox Series S and X. Todd Howard explains how all of the mini quest lines, interactive objects, lighting systems, and Creation Engine 2.0 play a part into Bethesda providing the best possible version of the game on new hardware.
We are just so happy with the new engine. It took us so long to do. Our tech team, they're wizards, led by Chris Rodriguez and Joel Denault. And what we're able to do in the game and have all these things looking amazing and running, from all of the items that we're simulating and people, spaceships, full planets. Our lighting model is just awesome. The real-time GI. We didn't really show this off, but I'd love to in the future, which is we have some great volumetric fog and how that interacts with the lighting. Then you get into the physics and we start messing with gravity. It gets even crazier. We never looked at taking features away. Our focus is on delivering all of that. And ultimately, look, we boil it down to we wanted the consistency. Game is running great, but we don't want players to ever think about it. We have obviously seen other games that have performance modes, and we lean toward consistency overall, and we talk to our fans and hear that from everybody. So we're feeling really great. Game feels great in your hands. And I would say, look, developers know this, but there are things that you can do to make that look and feel great. Things like motion blur, how fast the game refreshes or reacts to a controller input, all of those things matter to something feeling great. And I can honestly say this is the best feeling game that we've had.
Todd Howard has been very secretive about specific anomalies in the massive space universe like black holes, the hint at Space Force like telekinesis, and the overall trajectory of the story that we will discover once we set our sights on the stars. Starfield has been a very important keystone for Xbox moving forward with their new studios, and with the games media and even fans projecting that Starfield is the last bastion of hope for the Xbox brand. Kinda Funny Games XCast asked Todd Howard specifically how the role of Starfield plays on the weight and the future of the Xbox brand.
I think I was feeling better before you asked that question. Look, we're focusing on what we can do, like I said, on this game. And I will say Xbox has been their support has been incredible on this. With Phil and Matt Booty and the team over there, and obviously we worked with them for a long time, going back 20 years at Morrowind. But being part of Xbox and their support has really, it has allowed us to be this ambitious and take these risks. And fingers crossed.
Starfield is arguably the biggest game of the year and could quite possibly be one of the most big games of the generation, next to major hit games coming out right now. The critically important new IP for Bethesda and Xbox, and the opportunity to have a fully rounded and massively scoped science fiction game is super important to gaming fans that have access to an Xbox console, PC, or any other device in the ecosystem. The gunplay combat, the visuals have never looked better, and seem to have benefited from a major upgrade across the extra 1 to 2 years of development time. Fans of Bethesda games are already expecting Starfield to be an incredibly massive, immersive, and personal experience, and from what we've seen, there is little left to cast doubt that Starfield will make a major impact on gaming. This is Colteastwood. Thank you so much for checking out the video. I'm so excited about Starfield. I'm so glad to see these interviews with Todd Howard and see what he's willing to talk about and reveal for the game. Already we have seen so much, almost an entire hour of revealed footage, explanation of gameplay mechanics, and all the things we will be doing in the game, with little left to be a mystery at this point. But fans are still loaded with burning questions about what we can expect that has not been talked about up to this point. If you ended up enjoying this video, let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel. Hit the bell to be notified of new weekly content. If you want to do more to support this channel, you can hit the join button below. Also, if you want to hear more discussion about these things in depth, we have the X&C podcast. That is a weekly 2-hour podcast that runs at 5 p.m. Pacific time or 8 p.m. Eastern time on this channel. It's live with my co-host, Middle-Aged Game Guy, and we will be breaking this stuff down. It's also available on demand here on YouTube after, and on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. But I want to know what you're really wanting to ask Todd Howard. Put it in the comment sections. Maybe he watches the video. Maybe he looks at the comment section. Maybe he could answer your question as well. Who knows? Let me know while you're there. Please remember, as always, be nice.